Chapter 3. Who is she? When we got home from the new house, it was time for Rascal's monthly flea and tick drops. It's my job to put the drops on the fur at the back of his neck. Mom pointed out that it wouldn't hurt if I brushed him, too. It doesn't hurt him, but he doesn't like it. He somehow knew what was up because he took off running. I chased Rascal from under tables and chairs, from behind our couch, and finally to the top of the curtains, where he clung for his precious 9 lives. Come here, I yelled. Get off the curtains before Mom gets mad. High flying, Rascal dropped like a sack. He scampered from the living room to my bedroom and then into the kitchen, where he skidded to a halt. Food is Rascal's undoing. Foolishly, he stopped to sniff the air for the aroma of beans simmering on a low flame. He closed his eyes, and that's when I grabbed him and dove the medicine along his back. I also gently combed his fur with a cat brush. You're such a baby, I said, scratching his head when I was done. That didn't even hurt. Rascal blinked his blue eyes and walked into the living room, where he sat facing the front door. Okay, you be that way, I said in fake anger. I opened the door for him, and he left without giving me a single goodbye meow. I stuck my head into the hallway and watched him slip outside through the open hall window. It was only 4:30. Dad had gone to get the van washed, and Mom was in the kitchen on the phone. And me, I veered into my bedroom and kicked off my shoes. As much as I hated the thought of moving, I was already thinking about packing for the big move. Mom had said she wanted me to get rid of stuff so that she, could buy new stuff. Let's see, I thought to myself as I surveyed my things. Where has to go? Nothing, I answered myself. I was going to take everything, even the door frame with my height markings, if Dad would let me. But he wouldn't, of course, and I knew for sure he wouldn't jackhammer up the cement in the back where I had pressed my handprints when I was 4 years old. Suddenly, I found myself dancing, my hands gripping the hem of an invisible folklórico skirt. I hummed in turn, picking up the rhythm we worked on that morning in class, but I became aware of rumbling dance steps echoing mine from above. I stopped. The steps stopped. I looked up at the ceiling. I conjured up an image of Mr. Mendoza holding the hem of an invisible skirt. No way. I shook my head until the image disappeared. Are you mocking me? I barked at the ceiling. Other than a creak, the ceiling said nothing. No voice above me taunted, Yeah, I'm making fun of you. I had to have some answers. I stuck my head into the kitchen and told Mom, I'll be back in a sec. She mumbled absent-mindedly, Don't be long. We're having enchiladas tonight. Mom sometimes doesn't really listen, especially when she's reading a recipe or talking on the phone. And now she was reading a Mexican cookbook. I walked up one flight and knocked on the door to Mr. Mendoza's apartment. I heard footsteps that didn't sound like Mr. Mendoza's. His footsteps started to slide like he was on skis, and these steps were clearer and crisper, but not loud. I was puzzling over this when the door opened and a woman in a leotard stared out at me. She had black hair that was pulled back into a bun. Her face was red, as if she had been running up the steps. Who is she? Are you selling something? The woman asked. I shook my head. Is the radio bothering you? She asked. I shook my head. Would you like to come in? The woman asked. I hesitated. Is Mr. Mendoza in? I asked, and nosy me. I wondered if he had a girlfriend. I knew that he had been married, but his wife had died before I was born. No, he's out playing dominoes. I imagine Mr. Mendoza hungered over a game at the Senior Citizen Center. The woman smiled. I guess he's having fun. Then she introduced herself as Miss Gloria Mendoza, his daughter. She remarked, I heard you dancing downstairs. She cast her eyes upward and opened the door a little wider. You were doing Caiman, weren't you? How did you know? I asked. I could feel my mouth sag open a little. I used to dance folklórico, she explained, and now she looked down at her leotard, and now I just worked out for exercise. But she giggled with a hand over her mouth. She confessed that she had been teasing me a little by repeating my dance steps. Bad, she scolded and playfully spanked her own wrist. But she was far from bad. In fact, I thought she was wonderful. Her eyes were beautiful, and her smile was natural and warm. I didn't know Mr. Mendoza had a daughter, I remarked, unable to think of anything else to say. He does, and that's me. Her eyes shone. She seemed proud to be his daughter. And you're Marisol, right? I nodded, wondering how she knew. Still, when she asked again if I would like to come in, I took a few steps back and said, better not, but I'll come down. She left the door open while she hurried to get a wrap, but pulled on a Chicago Bears sweatshirt instead. She slipped on sandals as she hurried out the door with her house key dangling from a cord on her wrist like a bracelet. Let's go, she said. We walked side by side down the steps, and then I pushed open her front door. Please come in, I said. The woman said as she stepped into our living room. Something smells good. Mom was still in the kitchen, and Dad was still out. Mom, I called. We have a visitor. I led the way into the kitchen. Mom stood at the stove, wearing an apron to protect her clothes from the splash of hot oil as she prepared enchiladas. She looked up and, before she spoke to me, greeted her guest with a, hey girl. She put down her spatula and gave Gloria Mendoza a quick kiss on each cheek. Mwah, mwah. You know Miss Mendoza? I asked. Of course, Mom answered. How come I don't know her? I thought you knew everything, Mom said, teasing me. Mom meant to bring up the time I had boasted, after getting straight A's, that I knew everything. Well, it was true. I knew everything up to that point. 3rd grade. Oh, I'm just teasing, Mom said. Yes, I know Gloria, Mr. Mendoza's daughter. We met long ago when she came back to visit her father. Now she's living with him. That's right, at least for a while, Miss Mendoza said. Then she told me that she was back from New York, where she had been a dancer. Right then, I got dreamy. I mean, New York, a dancer. I pictured myself on a stage with a spotlight slowly swiveling toward me. The spotlight settled on me, and applause thundered in my ears. But how do you know ballet, folklórico? I asked, as if the image of my success broke when Mom opened the squeaky oven door. That's how I started, here in Chicago. Really? She nodded her head. When I was about your age, she continued, I tried to imagine Miss Mendoza being my age, and I had to wonder if she had ever been my height. She was tall, maybe even taller than Dad. I took lessons at the playground on Roosevelt Street. I also took tap and modern and traditional ballet, any kind of dance class I could. She told us that when she was 20, she had moved to New York and had danced for the Radio City Rockettes for six years, then danced on Broadway before opening her own dance studio. No way, I said, rocking on the heels of my shoes. A Rockette! Miss Mendoza propped her hands on her hips. You don't believe me? She had a fake stern look and behind that look a smile. Yeah, I believe you. And I did. I could see by the way she moved, by the way she stood, that she was a dancer. It's just that I hadn't even met a real dancer, someone who had danced in the lights of New York. I see you two have a lot to talk about, Mom said. You can go into the living room and get to know each other. Gloria, would you like to stay for dinner? Claro. We went into the living room where Miss Mendoza asked me to show her Caiman. Very good, she chimed after I demonstrated my steps. I've been dancing for about 2 years, I said proudly. Mostly ballet, folklórico, as my favorite and how I got started, but now also ballet, and last summer, I even did some jazz. I held back a smile, like I had water in my mouth and was getting ready to set it flying. Victor and I did that all the time in summer. Ballet is the hardest. I still feel stiff, even though my teacher, Mademoiselle Juliet, tries to compliment me. Mademoiselle Juliet wants you to keep trying, mija, Miss Mendoza said. Traditional ballet is hard for everyone, especially at the beginning. Was it hard for you too? I asked. She laughed, clapped her hands together, and said, Claro, but it's worth all the hard work, because it's the foundation for everything else a serious dancer does. You are a serious dancer, yes? Let's see your, Pas cha. I switched gears into ballet mode. Pas cha means cat step, but I'd never seen Rascal move like that. After a bit of that, Miss Mendoza asked me to do my folklórico routine again and watch my steps closely. Very nice, Miss Mendoza remarked after I finished. I remember Caiman well and some others, but not a lot. Do it one more time. She corrected a couple of my steps and then kicked off her sandals to demonstrate. Miss Mendoza made it look easy. She made me do the steps over and over until I was out of breath. Very good, young lady, she said. You have excellent posture and a subtle rhythm. That will help you in ballet too. And tap, of course. You want to start that soon. Once again, I held back my smile. I couldn't wait to tell Sarah about Miss Mendoza. Miss Mendoza excused herself then, saying that she was going up to dress for dinner and would be back in a few minutes. Dressed for dinner? I wondered. She looked dressed to me. Dad wouldn't have minded the Chicago Bears sweatshirt. The Bears are his favorite football team. She disappeared before I could put back the rug, but I had rolled it like a burrito. After I finished unrolling it, I returned to the kitchen and washed my hands so that I could help Mom grate cheese. But I opened a can of black olives. After I poured off the liquid from the can, I stuck a few olives on the ends of my fingers before I chopped them. Mom, she's a real dancer, I stated dreamily. I hear she was really good, mija. Mom tapped a large spoon against the black pan where the beans were frying into refritos. She added a little milk and 3 pinches of yellow cheese. I studied Mom's face to see if she was in a good mood. She was. So I risked asking, Mom, do you really have to move? Now that I had just met Miss Mendoza, I had one more reason for not wanting to move. Mom sighed and said, yes, we have to. It's going to be better for you and for us. My shoulders sank. I wanted to ask, what about my dance classes? But I held my tongue. I regretted bringing up our move when we should all be happy because we were having a special guest for dinner. I loved my mom and didn't want to put her in a bad mood. So instead, I went into the dining room and busied myself setting the table with napkins, the cloth ones, and forks and knives. I put out spoons too, though I wasn't sure if we were going to need them. I returned to the kitchen. I know it's going to be hard to move, Mom tried to explain. It was still in her mind, but it's for the best. Our new house will be closer to my work. Maybe I won't have to be on the phone so much when I'm home. Won't that be nice? Mom then cut a look to the cabinet that held the dinner plates, the good ones. I turned to get them out. Mom was going all out for Miss Mendoza. Marisol is a natural dancer, Miss Mendoza said at dinner. She has a beautiful line, perfect for ballet. I blushed and drank some water to keep from smiling really big. She just needs to continue studying, she added. I hope you can find her a good studio in Des Plaines. I wish you could be my teacher, I told her. Now, wouldn't that be fun? She laughed. I could see from the corner of my eye that Miss Mendoza was looking at me. Maybe she was imagining me as her student. Before dinner, she had redone my hair. I wasn't her student, but when she had pulled my hair into a tight bun, I had imagined, just for those few minutes, that maybe I was. After dinner, I cleared the table and put the dishes into the sink to soak. Soon, I would have to slip on rubber gloves and get to work. That was the only thing I hated about enchilada dinners, those messy plates that I had to scrub until my arms were limp. But I remembered that our new house has a dishwasher and... I did a jeté to celebrate. My days of scrubbing dishes by hand would soon be over. Well, the dishwashing could wait tonight. Mom shooed me into the living room to be with all of them. I thought I would have to listen to Dad talk about his childhood and tell stories about working in the beef fields in Illinois, but I was wrong. He talked about picking apples in Washington instead. Mom rescued us when she asked Miss Mendoza, "Where's your father this evening?" "Good question," Miss Mendoza responded. He says he's playing dominoes, but I think he must be up to something else. Mom was wise at picking up signals. You mean, A lady friend? Miss Mendoza nodded her head. I think so, she said. Then she put her coffee cup down and got to her feet. Wow, I thought, her dad's like 60 or even older, and he has a girlfriend. Miss Mendoza complimented Mom's dinner and said next time it would be her turn to cook for us. But now that Mom had reminded her, she needed to go out and see about her father. May I come? I asked boldly. I was already on my feet. Dad narrowed his twiggy eyebrows at me. Of course, Miss Mendoza said. Is it all right with you? Elisa? Hector? Can I, Mom? May I? I tried to blink my eyes in a sorrowful way. Pretty please? I couldn't believe I was actually begging. Are you trying to get out of doing the dishes? Mom asked. I was insulted. No, Mom. I'll do them when I come back. They're soaking right now. Mom murmured. Okay, but take my phone, just in case. She went to her purse. Mom, we're only going 3 blocks, I protested. You never know when you might need it, she said, putting it in my pocket. I'll bring her back in half an hour, said Miss Mendoza. I grabbed my purple dad strap as she shouldered her purse and led me to the front door. Downstairs, we ran into Victor sitting on the steps, examining his purplish fingers in the fading light. What's wrong? I asked. It's gone, he labored to say. It seemed like he was ready to cry, and I wondered if someone had stolen something from him. What's gone? I asked. My raspada, he answered sadly. A popsicle stick lay on the cement steps between his feet. Victor had picked out on his popsicle, and now he was sad that it was gone. He didn't deserve a second look. Miss Mendoza and I walked up the street. Even though it was October, it was still warm, so lots of our neighbors were sitting on their steps. We said our hellos as we passed. I figured that some of them were wondering who Miss Mendoza was, and I knew that they would become gossipy when we were just out of earshot. That's how our neighborhood is. I know where my father is, Miss Mendoza said, a smile arched and deepened on her face. We walked 2 blocks in silence. Her long strides had me almost running, and I could feel a pinch of pain in my side. I stopped once to tie my shoe, and then had to run and catch up. At last we stopped, and Miss Mendoza opened the door of the Senior Citizen Center, the same place where my dance class was scheduled to perform on Thursday. It was so bright inside that I had to cover my eyes. You're sure he's here? I asked as he walked up the hallway. She nodded her head. Oh yeah, he's here. We cruised into the recreation room where we found him playing dominoes with a woman. Roberto Mendoza, his daughter called. I hadn't known that Mr. Mendoza's first name was Roberto, or that he could move so fast. He rose quickly to attention, and for a second, I thought he was going to salute his daughter. Both Miss Mendoza and I could see what was up. Mr. Mendoza was romancing his woman friend. She was dressed in a flowered shift. Her mouth was red with lipstick, her cheeks pinkish from a sweep of blush. She was no doubt trying her best to look good. I'll be right back, he muttered to the woman in Spanish. He seemed a little bit embarrassed at being caught and all, especially with me at Miss Mendoza's side. But I thought, hey, good for you, Mr. Mendoza. Nice evening, Mr. Mendoza declared. That was my cue to get lost. I went back out to the corridor to wait for them to finish their father-daughter talk. Miss Mendoza came out shortly. Together, we went down the steps and waited outside the Senior Citizen Center for Mr. Mendoza to join us. I knew the rascal was up to something, said Miss Mendoza, and she told me she had sold her dance studio and moved from New York City to Chicago in order to take care of her father. He had fallen and hurt his hip, which was why he shuffled when he walked. Me papi, Miss Mendoza sighed. Do you wish you were still in New York? I asked. She chewed the inside of her cheek. No and yes. I like being with my father, but I do miss teaching. So come teach in displays. I nearly blurted out, but I checked myself. How could I ask her to do that? He doesn't really need any help, she said as she opened the door of the Senior Citizen Center for an elderly woman. I can see that now. That seems like the truest thing I was going to hear all day. He didn't need anyone's help. When he exited the Senior Citizen Center a moment later, with his dominoes under his arm, he was whistling a Mexican song. He gave his daughter a smile and patted my shoulder. Guess what? He said. Miss Mendoza hesitated for a moment before she asked, Papi, What are you up to? She propped her hands on her hips the way my mom does when she means business. Come on, guess. You lost the dominoes? No, something good. I'm going to have to buy a new suit. We blinked at Mr. Mendoza, confused. Smiling, he placed his hand over his heart and announced with a giggle, I'm getting married.